Okay, my friends, this is like going back on a trip on memory lane. This is just today, 2020, September 4th. Massive mystery holes appear in Siberian tundra and could be linked to climate change. And then they go down and they discuss when they first originally discovered them in 2013. They were originally discovered. They're not exactly sure how the huge holes, which is at least the 9th spotted in the region since 2013. Well, there's many more than that. However, I spoke to the Russians directly about this, and for sure it was before 2015, because I did some videos about this back then. And let me show you that right now, and then we'll go from there. But I know what's going on here, and I know what the cause of this is, and I know what these things are doing, and they can get like this. You see that? That's been burning, I think, for 30 or 40 years, and that's probably when they discovered it. It was burning probably forever. Now they go out and camp out there and watch it all day. I don't know what they do, and I think I said maybe in Turkmenistan or somewhere. I can't remember where it is. I really have no idea, to be perfectly honest with you. But it's a sinkhole, the same thing, and all that stuff is methane gases. And methane gases, you have to understand chemistry. These are hydrocarbons, CHs. And where do CHs come from? I can tell you where they come from, and you'll find out where they come from very soon. All right, now this goes back to 2015. This is when I did a whole series of things about the Earth being unstable and these blue holes, and that the Earth was literally or is literally alive. And then I related to the blue holes being the same as these gigantic sinkholes that are happening all over, just like up in Russia. And then I did another one here. This is again 2015. This is on the cellular structure of the Earth and how all of these sinkholes, and I understand what they are biology. All right, and what you see in there is this lung, and this is one of the holes in the lung, and these are those little pockets. Now let me back it out of here. You see, now we're up at the top of the lung. Now they're all over the place. You see? Now, if I go down inside, look, see down in here? All of those little, those are the balls. You see the balls over there on the side there? Try to focus in on the bottom right of that. You see them? Those are the kind of things you're seeing in the Mars crab, and that's from this lung. And anyway, there's a lot to learn about this, but it's all biological. Okay, this goes back to August 2015, and by this time I had all the CAT scans done, Jesse Garant and Associates, and I had the DNA test done on my giants, and they came back positive. I had talked to the Russians about their problem with this, showing these were blood vessels, and the tubes that they were finding, these big holes, were from where blood vessels were. And as they drained in Yamani, took out the fossil fuels and methanes and all that, the fluids drop in here because they're normally under pressure. They're normally under a pressure. Now, once you start to remove so much that you get a void in there, that pressure can grow, and then it pops the top off them because the tops get weak. Normally, the pressure coming down is equal to the pressure coming up, so you're pretty stable, and they're pretty much frozen in the tundra. Now, as it gets more and more energetic, because all energy does is heat, is energy. It expands things. You put something, a can of something that's sealed up, and the heat explodes. What happens is it expands. Now, so you had normally, it was like the can sealed with the frozen top and so forth. Now, what happened now was, even though the top is not completely unfrozen, more energy comes in here, and then you're sucking out the fluids and pumping them off to, sell them or whatever they do with them. and the fluid levels are dropping. And then now your fabric on the top becomes weak. And the tube is there. The tube is the same tubes as in these lungs. And I'm going to show this lung in the microscope in a second. You're going to see the exact same identical structure that is in these biological sinkholes. And that's what they are. They're biology. And I can show you, and I could prove it. You could easily prove this. Now, what happened with me was, this is 5 years ago. I had already determined that all my findings were about the Earth being alive and the giants, and even in space. Comet 67P, I had already analyzed all the stuff from that. That is also a biological entity, and it has the same identical blood vessels. Identical. Identical. All right, this is all coming back to me. Now, so here, I had told the Russians all about this, and I said, it's going to get worse, man. They're going to be collapsing, and you're going to have more and more of them showing up. So this was back, like I say, August 2015, and I'm pointing to this, and I'm showing this and that. And then I relate it to the Mars crab, which it is exactly identical to the Mars crab. You see that right there? That's a blood vessel. These are blood vessel tubes coming out of the arterial blood vessel. This is the vein. And now this is the tissue. And I think I show this in here. And I explain it. Because I even have, well, here, let me play the damn thing. Hold on, let me turn up the sound. All right, here it goes. Get ready. All right, I'm not going to dwell on this too much. This is the space crab, and this is Mars all this crab. Dust around here. That's ferrous oxide, and that's from the blood. The rust it comes from blood when it dries out, and it gets oxidized. There's two vascular structures here. One of them has a whole batch of blood vessels that are going through this tissue, which would have been muscle at one time. It was muscle. And here's the original photo here, right there. Now, all right, now listen to this. Now, this is these striations here. Those are the layers of muscle, and they're called sarcomeres, and they have little breaks in them. You see these breaks? They're little tiny sarcomere breaks, and that's what makes the muscles flex. You see them, all these little breaks up here? That's what they are. Now, the blood services them to give them the energy, the oxygen to do their little muscle thing. All right, I got to be honest with you. At some point, again, I don't remember when, and that might have been just a second ago, I showed you the muscles and how they have all the little striations, see striations? And then how they have the breaks between the muscle little bands, and there's a lot of erosion, and all of this red-blooded stuff eroded down, and it's all the dust at the bottom up in the Mars crab. Well, that's what muscle looks like. All right, so here goes, and I'm still here. This is still back 5 years ago. All right, here's some of my specimens that I think are very similar to the ones that they're showing as the crab feature from Mars. And I've been studying these for quite a while. And well, here, let me explain it now. You see this red blood here? Remember you see all that ferrous oxide running down? It's the same thing. That's where it runs out of, in between all of these layers of muscle tissue. That's one of those crabs. That's one of the blood feeders that feeds that big red stripe right there, which is arterial blood. You see it? It's right there. All right, now I'm going to show you. Let's get back to these holes that are in Russia. You know, I'm going back to some of these old videos. I really slaughtered the internet with these videos, and I got killed. And I got killed by both sides of the equation, by the academics and by the flat earth people. They couldn't stand me talking about Mars and the Mars crab. Destroyed everything I did, the flat earth people. The academics just called me a crazy creationist and a God lover. They just can't stand God. The other ones can't stand anything that you say, because I believe the earth was literally flat at one time. Yes, I do. I do, you flat earthers. It was an accretion disk, just like our galaxy is. And it eventually collapsed on itself and bloop, popped into a ball. So even with that, they won't accept it. Oh, no, the earth is flat now. There's no satellites, there's no nothing. So they destroyed everything I did. And the academics ignored everything I did and then said, oh, he's a flat earther. And I got put into that realm, never came out of it. So I just want you to know this is all coming back to me. And this was about, like, 4 comments, and they were probably the earth is flat something. Anyway, I tried to present this. And with the evidence I had, and I had, by this time I had the DNA, I had the CAT scans, I had the specimens, I had anatomists, I had chemistry, I had everything, and I got shut down. Yale refused to look at it, Harvard refused to look at it, every one of them refused to look at it, and all I was attacked, and by everybody, I mean literally my own family. So it was not easy, and I said, I don't care, and I still don't care, because it never got any easier. No, I said, I suppose there's no better time than to play this, too. But by this time, I had already talked to the Russians, and I'm relating this to the same things that are here, the same things that are on Mars, the same things that are Comet 67P. All right, these are the blue holes that I've talked about. Look at that, that's a bolt coming out. These aren't little tiny things. They're big, and they're like the ones in Russia. Only these are perfectly round. And you will see in the video it's coming up, or it's in this video. I don't know exactly how I'm going to splice them, but it will show divers going through these, and go in and look at the dives through these things. Absolutely unbelievable. And this woman writes a story of her going through it, and just it's exactly identical to the internal digestive system of creatures. And that's because it is an internal digestive system. That's the digester for Mother Earth. That's the feeder. Mother Earth is living off of organic matter. She's living off everything, including us. When you leach into the ground and decompose, somehow she's using it. And I see. This is why they thought I was a nutcase, because but it's true. This is all true. And Tyson's stuff shows it. I think I've either shown you already, or I will show you the membrane, which is so gigantic that you could swim through it, and it only allows in us protein molecules to go through it. So the scale of the dimension is just so unbelievable. And then the dragon and the fish in Morocco and the dragon over there, it's in the Atlas Mountains. It's just unbelievable. But it is true. And it's got to be dealt with. And nothing is going to change that reality. And regardless of how hard they pushed against it, there's only one thing to do, is just keep talking about it, because otherwise it's just everybody shuts up, and then every now and then they throw out a little thing, wow, look at this hole showed up over here, look at a hole showed up over here. And I think what's happening now is, well, you know, there's a lot of dying holes going on, and I'm not sure what the story is there, whether that's just normal or whether there's a problem. The earth is dying. But I've always suspected that if you keep sucking things out of the ground long enough, somehow something's got to collapse somewhere. And I think that's what's happening here. And when it does, I'm hoping it's not causing some disruption popping up through and causing these things to die. I don't know. Mother Earth is the only one we got. All right, these are the giant Russian holes. Right there. And these, you see these holes here all over the side? They're vascularization. I'm going to show you these. This is exactly the same thing. Here's what happened here. You see this is blown out? These are the ones I talked to the Russians about. This is exactly ones, the exact one, actually. Now, these balls right here, that stuff coming out, and I'm going to show you in the microscope, they have that. That's what takes in the oxygen and respirates through these little passages. Now, when they had sucked out so much fluids out of the peninsula there. That's my thinking. You have a pocket in there. Now the pocket grows that methane gas, and then eventually it blew out. That's a blowout. That didn't sink in here. That blew out of there. That's a blowout. That's like this thing here had a fabric on top. And it normally had, everything was filled up to the top of that fabric, and the fabrics more or less floated on it. And there was always pressure coming up enough, but there was fluids under there. Now, you took all the fluids out. Now this thing starts to sag a little bit. But pressure's building up under there. So now it gets flexible. The pressure builds up. They say they get to be like 12 or 15 feet high, and then they explode. And it's obviously, the warmer it gets, the bigger the molecules get. That is electron flood theory. And that I have shown in a bazillion other ways too. We have to start thinking everything different now. And I mean everything. I'm not kidding you. Every single thing. Because atomic theory is shown to be wrong. Geology is 100% wrong. Space is nothing like they thought. It's loaded with particles which scrub against our atmosphere, causing our magnetosphere and our ionosphere and all the magnetic things that happen in our atmosphere. It's loading our Earth with extra electrons. As we scrub through all of those extra particles that are in space, shown it a million times, I have evidence, I believe I have enough evidence to support everything I'm showing. And everything I'm showing relates to one big gigantic theory of nothing's right. Let's call it the universal theory of wrongness. All right, this is on Comet 67P. These are the vascular areas, and they call these the Dragon Balls. And these are the same things that are coming out of the Russian holes and the same things I'm showing everywhere. Now, these, when the sunlight hits them in a certain way, they literally boil the blood vessels out of here, and that's what creates the comas. Watch this. All right, this is Comet 67P. It's not boiling off any comas yet, but you can see that is a muscle bundle. Go to any anatomist. If they don't understand what that is, and this is tendinous material. This is, I believe, an Achilles tendon, or it's a tendon of some sort. That's the ball that was the anchor, and this is the stalk, and then it goes up into the fibers of the muscle after the tendon breaks off at the abrupt transition. Now, let me show you some of this. All right, you see I told you that they boil off? Well, when it hits the sun in the right way, they boil the blood out of the blood vessels. You see that? And that, and that, and that, and that. They didn't just happen there for no reason. And they're shooting this way because that's where the way the blood vessel pointed. And this is the way these blood vessels point. And that's the way that big blood vessel points out. And the other ones point in different directions. It's not just scrubbing away as it blows through the air or through the atmosphere of space, which does have a lot of particles in it, which is all the particles that come from the sun and every luminous body and things like this. That is biology, though, my friends, and every single thing there is biology. The Earth is 100% biology. The things that we have shown prove this. And these particles, they did, the Philae lander had a spectrometer in there or whatever. They had something in there that analyzed the molecules, and they are 100% organic. They're all organic, exactly. They're hydrocarbons, just like would come out of your blood vessels. These guys got identical same stuff, and they know it, and they just don't know what to say about it. So everybody walks around in circles because they're afraid to confront reality. That's the reality. All right, let me just play this through, and then we're going to take a look in the microscope, at this, how this is the same as this, because you're going to see it also when they get frozen, and you can see them all as little frost balls, and in here you'll see them as little, it's almost the same thing. All right, this is the area that this is happening in Russia, but it's happening down in Florida. All right, this is when again, this is like 2015. I had already talked to Russians about this and did a little research on it, so I wasn't unfamiliar with this at all, and I am still quite familiar with exactly what is going on everywhere in the world. It's not just there. too. It's just that it wasn't muddy up down in Florida. This has a heavy, heavy, deep, deep layer of mud. By the way, the reason I was talking about Florida is Florida has exact same thing. Florida, I believe, is a lung, and it's starting to collapse here and there. All of a sudden, things with sinkholes will go. And the whole reason, I don't know if I mentioned this, the whole reason I was in touch with the Russians is that I had responded to a guy that was on TV talking about sinkholes from Japan, and on Nova, and I emailed him. I said, really, here's what's going on, and I showed him, and he was very, very, very nice guy. One of the nicest encounters I've had with anybody, and he responded back, and then I don't know, not long after that, he got a hold of me. He says, here, I'm going to patch you through to the Russians. They want to talk to you about the sinkholes in Yamani. And I said, okay. So I talked to somebody in Russia, and I said, there's nothing you can do. I mean, if you keep taking the stuff out of the ground, and even if you stop taking it out of the ground, I don't know how you're going to, there's so much removed out of the ground, the fluids now. It had to come from somewhere. So there's a certain layer of the earth, and then everything under it was there. A lot of the stuff is gone. Well, I mean, what are you going to do? If the pressure's not there pushing everything back up, like I said, the skin, you're going to get these sinkholes. And where they are just huge, round, perfectly round craters that normally had methanes in them. This is where the methanes come from, because the decay from the blood vessels in here. Blood is methanes. Right? Blood is oils and gases. That's where it comes from. And the CHs, hydrocarbons, and it's the breakdown of biological things. And as it comes through all these little vessels and holes, they collect in these tubes, and then all of a sudden they explode. And some of them, like I showed, I think I already showed, one of them is burning forever, and they would just go out there and cook hot dogs there. Now, let me just finish playing this, and then we'll go from there. Now, here is the dying holes. They're starting to die all over the place. And that's like that. Now, you come down to here. Now, here's a literal blue hole that's still up in that area, but it's dying. You see this here? That's all methane gas that's emanating from the lake. And the lake was the digester of the earth. It appears our lakes or something. I'm not sure if it's the lakes are part of it, too, or it's just the blue holes. I don't know. I assume that everything is everything as long as it consumes the organic material. It's fed into Mother Earth, and Mother Earth is using it to eat, it looks like to me. That's her lunch. Now, you see these here? This is what happens in the wintertime, because the emanations from these holes. All right, these little balls. They call them the dragon balls in the craters that are on Comet 67P. They have the exact same things, exact same identical. I'll show you. And this is what either the blood is pushing its way back out. It obviously is. It's not trying to collect going in. So it's feeding back through these tubes, and that's what these things do. They transpire gases back and forth into your blood that would be behind there, which is identical to what happened. Well, let me start over. The emanations from these holes freeze up. Now, why is that stuff coming out of here? Well, that stuff is coming out of here because normally it would have been going the other way, is my belief. Now, I could be wrong, but it needs to be studied. Normally, this would have done the digesting or whatever it was, or maybe all the stuff normally leached this way. And this fed it down into the earth. I don't know. But all I can tell you is right now it's dying. And it's falling into the earth. And I think it's because they're sucking the stuff out. And it has nowhere else to go. That could very easily be. Because they look gigantic to us, but if you took that much oil out of the earth, you wouldn't be able to go too far.
You wouldn't have a whole lot of oil in the tank. So they're huge.
Let me just see what I'm thinking about here, because I can show you the Tyson stuff shows that this is not something that's unusual. The size of the things that are on the Earth are just absolutely amazing. Look, there's a blood vessel still left inside the Earth. Isn't that cool? Look at that. Let's see.
Send me something, I'll put an acknowledgement for your fabulous assistance, because some of these things, there's no way I can do this stuff, and I need a little help, and this is what we got to do. We got to expose this stuff, and we'll get all this stuff shown. Anyway.
Never happened.
This is up in these Russian sinkholes.
It's
and if you don't see the
vessel.
vascularization, I'm not exactly sure, I can't define the process yet, I'm thinking about it, but I can guarantee you that you will find some characteristic elements in there and materials that are related to
All right, before I go any further, I was literally, I think, the first to do any DNA on ancient mud fossils. And I had it done, by this time I had already had it done, in 2015. And I had the CAT scans, and I had anatomists, and I had all that stuff done already, so I knew what I was talking about. So this was not a mystery to me. But I didn't realize how deeply you could go with the DNA. Now they're just doing it regularly with virtually anything. They're taking the dust and everything else and getting DNA out of it. Because it's always been there, they just never looked at it until I started screaming. I don't even know if they'd be looking at it now if I didn't, because I tell you, it took a lot of abuse to get to the point where even anybody looked. So, and Velikovsky was talking about these things, and everybody's been talking about these things for years and years and years and years, and I don't know why they never get to the point, well, nobody's ever been able to prove with the DNA, and nobody's ever had the SAM specimens, and nobody's ever had the CAT scans. So I got all the stuff now. Let's just get it done.
The vascular system, there's going to be chemicals in there that we can test. And at least look at. Maybe it won't show anything, but if you don't look, you don't understand. But nobody understands this is from life. Think about it on this process. I'm going to tell you something right now. I believe that the holes up in Russia are from a lung. I know. Whoa. I believe that, and I have CAT scans of lungs that are in that same level of vascularization and porosity, and virtually identical, but they're obviously small.
Whoops.
It just happens. It's a process that's going to be natural and expected if you think the thing through. The problem is nobody can get their hands and their minds cracked open wide enough to understand that this is possible. You can't just say this is impossible and walk away.
That's
what's been done. It's ignored. Not acceptable. Not acceptable from our trusted educators.
That was 5 years ago I was complaining about it. I'm still complaining about it. They still ignore me.
And there is a lot of them. I'm kind of surprised. I was yikes. And they're exactly the identical architecture of the ones up in Russia. And look at the size of that thing. I mean, that's not little puppies.
See, now these are down in Florida. That's why I say that's another lung down there. Now, Tyson is doing, let me just show you something. All right, first of all, look at this. This is the typical pattern of a membrane. All right, so I showed you the typical pattern of a membrane. That is the membrane. Now, what does the membrane consist of? It consists of one of these layers here. All right, because that's one of the layers. It's called the, it's the membrane outer layer. And then in between that and another layer just like this is this bilipid fatty cholesterol and lipids, fats. And then they have these tubes, and there'd be a tube going from there up to another membrane. Now let me show you what this membrane looks like when it was intact. Don't forget, there's a lower part, there's an upper part, and then there's a part that is easily eroded away because it's wet and gooey in there. All right, now let's see what it looks like when it's in its totality. All right, let me just see what, this is the one that Tyson did. Tyson is doing an unbelievable job. This is the specimen he is working on. Now, we're trying to get him a drone because it's just gigantic, and he can get hurt out there where he's climbing around. He's going out, and, you know, I know he has a bad back, too. So anyway, we're going to look at this. This is a membrane. Now watch this.
So that I can be sure that I have your attention. Now, look at the size of this thing.
That's
the
Scott.
upper layer. This is the lower layer. And then this is where the tendon balls are. I call them tendon balls. They're interstitium balls. And it's collagens and keragens, and then these anchor balls, which...
All right, let me just explain to you. Up above here is some kind of tissue. And then there is the upper layer of the membrane. Then there's the aqueous, wet, gooey part that I told you erodes away. And then there's the lower part of the membrane. So that's the thickness of the membrane in this creature. And these are the holes that are, and let me just play it, because underneath here, whenever there's flesh, and it can stretch and pull and go anywhere, there's what they call interstitium balls. It's just, Gil Hadley and I discovered them, literally, back in 2012, 2013, 2014. 2015, the medical society says, ooh, we discovered a brand new organ. It's called interstitium. And I'll show you these balls in a second. They're everywhere. They call concretions. They're not concretions. Those balls are the anchors that hold your everything in its position so that it can move and flex. That's interstitium balls I'm talking about.
They're on straps. Absolutely enormous. Show this to any doctor. If he says that's not right, then you better find another doctor. By the way, this is Tyson Carlson's Mudfossil Adventures. Now, I work with him almost daily, and it's absolutely amazing, absolutely stunning, the size of this creature. In us, this layer here would be so thin that you look right through it, just like it wasn't even there, like a piece of glass almost. It'd be so thin. It's just what it is. Now, and that's Scott Wiles. Now, originally how this all happened was Scott sent me a picture of something that he saw, and it was almost undistinguishable of anything special, but I looked at it and I said, ooh, it looks like a transition zone. So then he did a little more, and then Tyson got involved, and Scott moves around a bit, so Tyson's pretty much really working this spot, like, all up and down the coast. Like I say, we're trying to figure a way of getting him a drone. Somebody in New Zealand apparently has set up a GoFundMe type of thing, and I'm just sort of recently talking to Tyson about it. I don't know what he's going to do there, but I'm telling you, he's got such a large sight. He could come up above this and see where it transitions from, because that's the key. That's the key. Where does this transition into? That's when you know what it's from. Otherwise, it's just a big bunch of tendon, or a big bunch of membranes, or a big bunch of muscle. Then you just, and then it's just a curiosity. Now, I relate all my stuff, because my stuff is small. I don't have to, he'd walk 20 miles, 30 miles. I'm serious. He could go 20, 30 miles before he got to the other side of his lung, or more. The things that I just can't explain it, so don't go there. I cannot explain it. Let's close that case. All I can tell you is that, in my opinion, and my opinion is based on an extreme amount of research and experimenting and testing and microscopy, which I'll show you in a second, I can't see anything that isn't biological. Now, the sun and so forth, well, it's scrubbing through, it's heated up, it's a bazillion degrees. I don't know. It's spitting out all kinds of stuff. Is it a god? I don't know. They talked about these things being gods. I don't know. I don't know at this point. I don't know. But all I can tell you is if we don't start thinking along these lines,
we're walking around in circles, and that's what's happened. 5 years ago I knew this. I talked about this, and I'm showing you I talked about it, and I have the evidence. I have the videos. I have the CAT scans, I have the DNA, I have the specimens, and it was just been ignored, and they're walking around in circles because they're just too afraid to open their minds wide enough to say, wow, holy shit. Sorry I didn't say that, but that's what they got to say. What are you going to say? Nobody expected this. I'm not pointing any fingers at anybody to be nasty.
He's a hard worker, and he understands this stuff very well now.
That's Tyson. He's doing a
fully
good job.
capable of saying what he sees. And this is the upper layer. You see these? And they said how they're different sizes and different shapes and so forth. Well, they are. Because this one pushes water that way, let's say, and this one pushes water or sucks water this way. It's that type of thing. Hydrophilic and hydrophobic. Water loving, water hating. So, very, very unbelievable, but it is fact. Now, to deal with it, I think is the best way.
Okay, remember I told you about the tendon balls, which are the interstitium, and they have now just admitted it. 2015, Gil Headley and I were working on it. These are the balls, and what they do is they keep this stuff, this membrane, attached to whatever it was below, in such a manner that it can move, but it will come back. On each one of these balls, there's like a big, long, strappy thing like this. I'm going to show you the anatomy of it, because they just admitted it. But we were looking at this, because I was seeing this everywhere. I mean, it literally is everywhere. And now they say it is everywhere. And they just never saw it because it was too small to see. These are tiny. We've got these so big, they're bigger than houses. I'm not kidding you. All right, this is the interstitium, new organ discovered in human body after it was previously missed by scientists. It's a shock absorber, and that's what it is. It lets them pull, and they come back. They pull this way, they pull this way, pull this way, but they always come back. Now, here's what it looks like. I think they show a picture of it here somewhere.
To get that taste,
There it is right there.
bittersweet apples in the world.
And those whatever this is going on here, forget that. Now, these are the balls. And these fluid-filled bags, they can pull and they squish this way, and all of these fibers pull and twist and everything, but they always come back into that sort of pattern, and the ball and the bags fill back up. Now, you see these collagen bundles? These are very, 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 very important, and these are the things that are being attacked in the lungs and in the blood vessels and in the heart, and all of the rubbery collagen bundles. And that's what from this COVID. There's a lot we can learn from mud fossils. They never even knew this really existed. This is brand new. They just figured this out. You say, oh boy, we just figured this out. No, Gil Headley and I figured it out. Now we know much more about it than them. They just sort of muddling through it now. Well, oh boy, it's a new thing. Oh boy, that's nice. Well, there's a lot more to it than that. A lot more. You see the interstitium? That's interstitium right there. Those are the balls. These are the straps. This is where the skin is pulled. This is where the skin is gathered. It's gathered here, it's pulled here. When everything's reset, it will all go into the same sort of pattern like this. But right now you've got gathered and you've got stretched. This has been abraded away and left the balls. And guess where this is, my good friends? This is on Mars. It's called the Mars-Morse code. Mars is identical to Earth. I showed you Tyson's stuff. I showed you, and there's bigger stuff around Earth. It's just a fact. You want to walk around in circles? Walk around in circles. But if you want to come to reality, stay around and pay attention. That's all I can tell you. It's up to you.